My wife cheated on me before we were married, and my son isn't mine. So I exposed her affair with multiple men and made sure her lies destroyed their lives too. My name is Alex. I am in my 30s, approaching 40, and until recently I thought I had the perfect life, one of those lives you see in the movies. I had been married to Sarah for more than 10 years, 10 years that I believed had been pure happiness. I met her during an internship, freshly graduated from university. We were both novices in the corporate world, in that company that promised to be our springboard. We spent hours together, sleepless nights working on projects, and between coffees and frustrations, we fell in love. She was bright, funny, and at that moment, I saw her as my everything. We married young, full of dreams and that innocence that only youth can give you. We built a life, a home, and our love felt indestructible. And then he arrived, our son, Yen. There are no words to describe what I felt when I held him in my arms for the first time. That small being, so vulnerable, so pure. An immense pride washed over me, a wave of love that made me feel like the luckiest man in the universe. My life was complete. A few months ago, we were at a gathering with friends. There were some of mine, some of Sarah's. Laughter, music, the perfect atmosphere. Everyone was having a great time. At one point, I saw Chloe, one of Sarah's friends from university. She had changed a lot, or so I thought. She had always been the bad girl, the one who lived life without filters. Now she seemed more settled. I was surprised, because I had always seen her as the epitome of a wild life. She approached me with a drink in her hand, and it was clear she had had too much to drink. Her words came out rushed, but her gaze was penetrating. Alex, she said, slurring her words, I am surprised to see you so happy, so normal. Do you know how much Sarah has changed? She was crazy in college. I laughed, a little uncomfortable. What do you mean? Chloe has always been Sarah. She burst out laughing, a laugh tinged with something I could not decipher. Oh, Alex, if you only knew. Your Sarah was, how can I put it, the queen of the party. Always with several guys, many relationships at the same time. She was wild. My smile faded. She had never told me that, not even close. I tried to keep my composure. What are you talking about, Chloe? That makes no sense. She leaned in, her alcohol breath hitting my face. Even when she met you, Alex. Even after that, she was still seeing some guys until you got married, of course. Then she got serious. The world around me seemed to stop. The laughter, the music, everything became a distant murmur. I did not know how to respond. My mind was blank. Then, in a whirlwind, I walked away from the party looking for my best friend, Mark. I told him what Chloe had told me, the words tumbling out of my mouth. Mark looked at me with skepticism. Are you sure, Alex? The girl is completely drunk. You do not know what she is saying. I did not know, that was the truth. Doubt had settled in my heart, like a cold snake. We went home. I looked at Sarah as she slept, so peacefully. I wanted to ask her, to confront her, but the words got stuck in my throat. What if it was a lie, the result of Chloe's drunkenness? Could I risk my marriage, my happiness, over a rumor? I decided to stay silent, for now. I went to sleep, although sleep did not come easily. The question, that insidious question, was already there. The next morning came with an unexpected call. It was Chloe. Her voice, now sober, sounded regretful. Alex, please, forgive me for last night. I was very drunk and said stupid things. Everything I told you about Sarah is a lie. I am so sorry. I thanked her, but her apology, although seemingly sincere, did not manage to calm the storm in my stomach. That feeling that something was not right, persisted. The words of a drunk person often contain truths that sobriety tries to hide. I decided not to be left with the doubt. My mind, accustomed to logic and investigation at work, could not simply ignore the possibility. After my workday and before Sarah got home, I went to see Yen. I held him, I hugged him. He was so innocent, so dependent on us. Looking at him only gave me more determination to discover the truth, whatever it was. If there was anything that could endanger his future or the foundation of our family, I needed to know. Then I went to the basement. There, in a secluded corner, we kept boxes with old memories, things from Sarah's university, objects we had never had time to sort through. I searched carefully, trying not to make noise, until I found a box marked with her name and university. I opened it. Inside there were yearbooks, blurry photos of parties, old letters, and, yes, an old address book with contacts. As I reviewed the photos, I stopped at one in particular. Sarah, Chloe, and other friends. But there was a woman I did not recognize, a face that did not ring a bell, but who seemed very close to Sarah and the others. Her name was written at the bottom of the photo, Jessica. I looked in Sarah's contact book and, to my surprise, I found a number next to her name. I did not hesitate. I dialed the number. It rang several times, but no one answered. I left a text message. Hello, this is Alex, Sarah's husband. I knew her in college, and I would like to ask you about something. There was no response. Curiosity turned into an obsession. If Chloe was lying, why the silence? My next step was the internet. I searched for Jessica and the name of the university on Facebook. After a few minutes, I found her. Same face, same name. I sent her a friend request and a private message. Hello, Jessica. I am Alex, Sarah's husband. I need to ask you something important about her. A few hours later, I received a notification. It was Jessica. Her response was direct, blunt. Is it about Sarah? My heart raced. Yes, I replied. So, you have already discovered the truth? The question hit me like a lightning bolt. The truth. What was she referring to? What do you mean, the truth? I wrote, my fingers trembling. She did not beat around the bush. It is better if we talk in person. I live in the city. We can meet on such and such a day at such and such a time. I accepted immediately. The rest of the day passed as if in a fog. When Sarah got home, I tried to seem normal, not to alert her to the time bomb I was carrying inside. She kissed me, asked me how my day had been. I responded with evasions, my mind elsewhere. The nervousness was eating at me. What was Jessica going to reveal to me? The truth was about to come out, and I had no idea what it would mean for my life, for my family. The next day, anxiety was gnawing at me. The wait until the appointment with Jessica felt eternal. I needed to talk to Mark again. I told him about Jessica, the unanswered call, the message on Facebook, and, above all, her response. So, you have already discovered the truth? That phrase echoed in my head. Mark, this time, did not try to downplay it. His voice was grave. Alex, the truth is that this looks bad, very bad. I do not want to judge Sarah, but from what you were telling me, it seems she was unfaithful to you before the marriage, maybe even after, if Chloe's story was not a drunken invention. The idea that Sarah had cheated on me before we were married, and that our entire history was built on a lie was devastating. I felt a pang of nausea, but at the same time, an overwhelming need to know everything. The following days were a torture of nerves. I faked normalcy at home, but every laugh from Sarah, every show of affection, felt like a dagger. My mind could no longer avoid reinterpreting every moment, every memory. What else had I missed? Finally, the day of the meeting with Jessica arrived. We chose a discreet cafe, far from home and work. I arrived early, my hands sweating and my heart hammering against my ribs. Anxiety was invading me. I felt like an amateur detective about to unearth a secret that could destroy his life. Jessica arrived on time. She was a serious-looking woman, with a gaze that denoted intelligence and a certain melancholy. She greeted me formally. Alex, I am very sorry you are going through this. Her empathy caught me off guard. Why are you sorry? I asked, my voice barely a whisper. Do you really know what is going on? She looked at me with compassion. Yes, I know. Do you not? From what Chloe told me, I thought you had already found out everything. I explained about Chloe, the call, the subsequent apology. Jessica nodded slowly. Chloe is like that. When she drinks, she has always been like that. She opens her mouth and says things she should not say, but that are true. My breathing quickened. Please, Jessica, tell me what is going on. She sighed, as if preparing for a long confession. Sarah, her other friends, and I met in college. We formed a very close-knit group, but they were very much party girls. They all had the peculiarity that they liked to be with many men, to have several relationships at the same time. I was the exception. I preferred to have a single serious relationship, although I accompanied them to parties. But Sarah, she was the one who got most involved, the one who had the most men at once. I do not know how you did not notice. Disbelief washed over me. How did I never know any of this? Jessica shrugged. They were very good at scheming, Alex. All of them. And very good at lying. They made a deal. They were supposed to leave that life behind after college and find good men to marry. I never believed them. Their attitude said otherwise. Her gaze hardened. Everything was fine in the group until after we graduated. I was already engaged to the man I had been with since the beginning of college, and Sarah got involved with my fiancé. The revelation hit me like a lightning bolt, right at the time when Sarah and I met. She could not be. While rose in my throat. I confronted her. Jessica continued, her voice tense. I tried to get the other girls on my side, but no. They all sided with Sarah. They covered for her. They kicked me out of the group. Me, the only one who was always honest. I was in shock, my mind blank, not knowing how to process that bombshell. My eyes moistened, but I held back. Please, continue, I could barely say. After that, I kept in touch with one of them, Laura. She was not able to stand up to the group, but she confessed to me that she was on my side, and she continued to tell me how Sarah was still up to her old tricks, even after meeting you. I felt very sorry for you, Alex, because even though she was no longer my friend, what she was doing to a man who truly loved her was not fair. Laura told me that even at your bachelor party, Sarah was with several men at once. The tears finally rolled down my cheeks. I could not hold them back anymore. No, it cannot be. That is almost all I know, Alex, Jessica said with sadness in her eyes. But it is most likely that she continues with those attitudes. She has always been like that. Only now she is much more discreet, much more. I tried to recap my relationship with Sarah, every moment, every detail, and I realized that, no matter how hard I tried to find it, there was not a moment when I started to suspect. I checked her cell phone once, I confess, although I feel bad admitting it, and it was always transparent. There was nothing suspicious. I told Jessica. She was not surprised. You should not be surprised. She has always used two cell phones for those situations. One that seems totally normal, and another where she has the contact information of all the other guys. She always did that whenever she had a serious boyfriend, so he would never find out. The sadness I felt transformed into a mass of pure rage, a burning anger that consumed me. Not only had she cheated on me, but she had planned her deception with a coldness and a premeditation that chilled my blood. I am very sorry, Alex, Jessica said, handing me a card. I want to recommend this. It is the contact of a private investigator. He specializes in adultery cases. I know him because I am a divorce lawyer. She gave me another number. And this is my personal number. I changed it. If you need help with the divorce process, I will gladly help you with everything. I thanked her, my hands trembling as I took the cards. As soon as I left the cafe, I dialed the private investigator's number. I told him the situation concisely, my voice still trembling with anger. He listened. I understand, sir. The cost of the investigation will not be low, but we can start immediately if you give me your wife's details. I thought about it for a second. I no longer cared about the money. My life was broken and I needed the truth. I accepted. I sent him half the money. When I got home, Sarah had not yet returned. I went into Yin's room. I watched him sleep. He looked so much like Sarah. Yes, but what about me? I began to doubt. The certainty I had that he was my son crumbled. I called Mark again. I told him everything. The university, Jessica's fiancé, the 2 cell phones, the investigator, and the doubt about Yin. Mark listened to me patiently. Alex, I am very sorry. I knew this was the most likely outcome, but you have to be strong. Do not alert her. Pretend everything is normal, do you understand? And about Yin, I have an acquaintance who went through something similar. He found out his son was not biologically his. There are paternity tests, Alex. It is the best thing you can do to check. I hung up with Mark, my head in a whirlwind. Anger, sadness, uncertainty. When Sarah arrived, I received her with my mask on. Kisses, routine questions. The composure was difficult to maintain, but I could not let her suspect. Not yet. I needed to be cold, calculating. The next day, the decision was made. I would not let myself be carried away by feelings, at least not for now. I would do whatever was necessary to discover the whole truth, and, yes, I would have those DNA tests done. After everything I had learned, I could not afford a single doubt anymore. The plan was clear, to be cold and calculating. The anger and rage were a motor, but they could not cloud my judgment. Sarah, with her double life, had trampled on something sacred, something I had told her with an open heart. How my own mother's infidelity had destroyed my father and marked my childhood. And yet, she did the same thing, with a shocking coldness. That was what gnawed at me the most. My double life began. Every morning, the same routine, forced smiles, casual goodbyes. I went to work, yes, but my mind was elsewhere. I needed to move with discretion, secretly. With Yin's DNA, a few strands of his hair that I collected from his brush, I had the paternity tests done. The uncertainty about whether he was my son or not was a constant torment. So the weeks passed, a month of agony disguised as normalcy. I was waiting for the DNA results and, at the same time, the private investigator's report. Every day was torture. Finally, the investigator's call came. Mr. Barnes, I need you to meet me at my office. I have a lot of information to give you. I took the day off. The appointment was for the early afternoon. The nerves were eating me up inside. When I arrived at his office, the investigator greeted me with a pile of documents and a projector turned on. I took a while to call you Mr. Alex, because what I found is a lot, and, unfortunately, it is serious. He began to show me the images, one by one. They were photos of Sarah, not just with one man, but with several. The dates, the places, and yes, my worst suspicions were confirmed. Her work meetings with investors were actually encounters with other men. I recognized some of them from the university party photos I had seen in the basement. They were the same guys with whom, supposedly, she no longer had contact. The investigator continued, unperturbed. As you can see, Mr. Barnes, your wife has not only been cheating on you, but she has done so with a regular pattern and with several people. We have photos of her entering and leaving apartments, hotels, always with affectionate behavior, and often at times that she would have justified in another way. The evidence was overwhelming, irrefutable. My rage grew with each image. It was not just the betrayal, it was the blatant and prolonged lie. Can you get the numbers of those men's wives? I asked, my voice hard as steel. Remember, for more stories like this, subscribe, give a like, and turn on notifications. Let us continue. The investigator smiled, an almost macabre smile. So you are looking for an earthquake, huh, Mr. Barnes? Yes, I replied with controlled fury. They are not going to make a fool of me, and it is not just my wife who will suffer the consequences. Those men too. Their families deserve to know the truth. You can count on it, he assured me. But sending that evidence to the wives will have an additional cost, Mr. Barnes. It is a delicate job. It does not matter, I cut him off. Money was no longer a concern. I just wanted the truth to come out, for everyone involved in that web of lies to pay for their actions. I gave him the authorization. I left the investigator's office with my stomach churning, but with an iron conviction. The first call I made was to Jessica, my lawyer. I have to talk to you, I told her. We met quickly. I showed her the new evidence. Her eyes widened in surprise. Alex, I am so sorry. This is even worse than we imagined. I do not just want a divorce, I told her, my voice heavy with determination. I do not want to give her absolutely anything. And, about my son, I have had DNA tests done because I do not know if he is mine. Jessica was breathless. Alex, I am very sorry. That will be very hard for you. But, being the professional she was, she nodded. I agree to represent you. I will start the procedures as soon as possible for the divorce. With this evidence, we are in an unbeatable position. I thanked her, the hope of justice shining in the darkness of my anger. When I got home, Sarah was not there yet. I went straight to Yin's room. I watched him sleep, so small, so innocent. He looked a lot like Sarah. Yes, but what about me? The doubt, now bigger and more painful, completely invaded me. I sat on the floor, and, despite my attempts to hold them back, the tears flowed. The possibility that my son was not biologically mine was a devastating blow. I forced myself to calm down. Sarah would arrive at any moment. I cleaned my face, I composed myself. When she walked through the door, she tried to kiss me, as always. I stopped her. I am sick, I said, the lie coming easily from my lips. The truth was, I felt disgusted. I could not kiss her. I went to bed, feigning fatigue, while my mind continued to plan the next move. The end of this farce was approaching. The following week was a hell of contained tension. On one hand, my lawyer, Jessica, confirmed that the divorce papers were ready. On the other, the private investigator notified me that the evidence for the other men's wives was ready to be sent as soon as I gave the order. I decided that everything would come to light at the same time. I wanted a coordinated impact, an explosion that would leave no doubt. And then the DNA test results arrived. They had taken a long time, and every day of waiting had been torture. My hands trembled as I opened the envelope. Fear took hold of me, a cold, paralyzing fear. I looked at the words, the percentages, and there it was, the stark truth. Yin was not my biological son. My world came crashing down. I broke down in tears, a guttural, heart-wrenching cry. Not only was my marriage a sham, but the child I had loved as my own, for whom I would have given my life, did not share my blood. The pain was unbearable, a betrayal within a betrayal. After the sobs, the sadness gave way to an icy fury. I called Jessica, my lawyer, my voice still trembling. I gave her the news about Yin. There was a compassionate silence on the other end. Alex, I am so sorry. This is a very hard blow, but from a legal point of view, this can be a very strong resource for you if she tries to appeal for custody or child support. Do not rule it out. Let us wait and see how she reacts. I accepted. The idea of using Yin as a bargaining chip disgusted me, but she was right. I had to be smart. I decided not to go home that day. I stayed in a hotel, unable to look Sarah in the face, to touch the baby knowing the truth. The next day, my phone exploded with calls and messages from Sarah. Where are you? Why did you not come home? I am worried. I ignored them all. I drove directly to Jessica's office. I picked up the divorce papers. I will deliver them personally, I told her, my voice strangely calm. Before going home, I called the investigator. It is time, I told him. Send the evidence to the wives and give them the number of Jessica, my lawyer, in case they need to start their own divorce proceedings. The investigator nodded. You can count on it, Mr. Alex. It will be done. I got home. I took a deep breath before getting out of the car. This was the moment, the point of no return. I took the folder with the divorce papers and the photos. I knew my life would never be the same again. When I walked in, Sarah came to meet me, her face flushed with anger. Where the hell were you? Why were you not answering your phone? I entered without saying a word, my face an expressionless mask. I walked to the coffee table and left the folder. What is this? She asked, her eyes narrowed. Open it and read, I instructed her. She opened the folder. First she saw the photos, images of her with other men, leaving hotels, with affectionate attitudes. Her face turned pale. Then she saw the divorce papers. The denial was instant. No, this is a lie. They are work meetings. It has nothing to do with what you were thinking. My patience ran out. Look closely at the photos, Sarah. There are photos of you leaving hotels with those men. Are those also work meetings? Tears welled up in her eyes. She tried to play the victim, as always. Please, forgive me. How are we going to break up our family? We have a son together. I held back. I wanted to scream at her that I knew Yin was not my son, but it was not the time. I am leaving the house, I told her, my voice sharp. Right now? I packed my things. While I was putting the essentials in a suitcase, she continued with her litany of pleas and empty promises. Please, do not do this to me. I swear I promise. I laughed, a bitter, hollow laugh. Shameless, Sarah. Do you think I am so foolish as to forget what I told you about my own mother's infidelity and how it affected me? And you still did all this? Do not expect me to react well. I finished packing my things. I headed for the door. Do not worry, I said with a cold smile. You are not the only one affected by this. Call those men, see what their wives tell you. She was in shock, her face distorted. What did you do? She whispered. There are other people who needed to know the truth, I said, and without another word, I left. I did not know where to go. My head was spinning. I called Mark. Man, I need a place. I have left Sarah. He did not hesitate for a second. Come to my house. I will be waiting for you here. When I arrived, Mark helped me bring down my suitcases. I told him everything. The photos, the other men, Yin's DNA, the confrontation. He listened to me, without judgment, just nodding his head. His presence was a balm in the midst of the chaos. I am here for you, brother, for whatever you need. I turned on my cell phone. An avalanche of messages and calls from Sarah. I opened them. They were all of complaint, of fury. How could you do this? You also sent the evidence to their wives. Now everyone has problems because of you. I read her messages and a strange satisfaction settled in my chest. The investigator had done an excellent job. I called Jessica to inform her that I had already given the papers to Sarah. Perfect, Alex. I will be watching for any move from her. I hung up. The night was falling, but for the first time in a long time, I felt that, despite all the pain, I was on the right path. The days turned into weeks, and the legal battle with Sarah became official. The first meeting to agree on the terms of the divorce was scheduled. I arrived with Jessica by my side. Sarah was already there, accompanied by her lawyer. The atmosphere in the room was dense, charged with a hostility that was almost palpable. As soon as Sarah saw me with Jessica, her face contorted with fury. What is she doing here? Is she your lawyer? How dare you, Alex? This is just for revenge because I got involved with her fiancé. Jessica, unperturbed, remained professional. Mrs. Barnes, what you allege has no relevance in this proceeding. I am here to represent my client and ensure that justice is done. She gave her a cold smile, and Sarah's lawyer intervened quickly, trying to calm her down. Sarah, please, this does not help us at all. The meeting was a complete disaster. Sarah refused to give in on anything. She just wanted to argue, accuse, and play the victim. Over and over she repeated that she would not accept the terms, that we would go to trial. My lawyer and I remained calm. Fine, Jessica said firmly. If that is what you wish, we will go to trial. The following weeks dragged on with hearings and legal procedures. It was an exhausting process, but my determination did not waver. I knew what I was fighting for. Until the key hearing arrived. Sarah's lawyer and she herself were asking for an absurd amount of alimony for her and for our son, claiming that I should support them and that they could not be left with nothing. It was then that Jessica looked at me and nodded. "It is time for the evidence," she whispered. They presented the DNA results. The room fell silent. Sarah's lawyer turned pale, and she herself was left speechless. "What is this? It is not possible," she exclaimed, her voice choked. The judge reviewed the documents carefully. "The evidence is clear," she said with solemnity. "Mr. Alex is not the biological father of the minor." Sarah broke down in tears, trying to deny reality. "It is a lie, this is impossible." But the evidence was undeniable. The judge issued the divorce decree, dividing the community property, but making it clear that Sarah would not receive a single cent of my personal assets due to the evidence of adultery and the lack of paternity. I felt a burst of relief and a deep satisfaction. I had won. I looked at Jessica, who gave me a discreet smile of victory. We left the hearing. Sarah tried to stop me, kneeling in the hallway, crying and begging, "Please, Alex, forgive me. Accept me back with our son. Even if he is not biologically yours, you are his dad." I looked at her with a mixture of pity and contempt. "Do not be cynical, Sarah," I told her, my voice cold. "This is all your fault, your promiscuous attitudes, and your lies. Now get a life. And although it hurts me to leave Yen, I know the best thing is for you to talk to his real father and for him to take responsibility." Her face became disfigured. "But I do not know who the father is," she shouted between sobs. A bitter laugh escaped my lips. "That is not my problem, Sarah. And please, do not look for me again." I turned around and left, leaving her crying echoing in the hallway. The following days were frantic. I began to organize the sale of the house, which was community property. I received calls and messages from Sarah's friends. They tried to verbally assault me, claiming that how could I leave a woman alone with a child? I could not take it anymore. I knew their husbands, and many were my friends. I wrote to them, telling them my situation, and, by the way, I warned them that it was very possible that their own wives had also done the same thing, given the university customs of Sarah and her group. The reaction was immediate. My messages caused an earthquake in their marriages. Shortly after, Sarah's friends wrote to me again, but this time they were messages of fury and complaint. "How could you do this? You are destroying our marriages." I smiled with satisfaction. My decision not to remain silent had paid off. Months passed. I finally moved into a new, smaller apartment, near where Mark lived. While he was helping me carry the last boxes, he asked me about the rest of the earthquake. "Well," I told him as we opened a couple of beers, "according to the investigator, I know that the other men's wives received the evidence, and the first thing they did was kick them out of their houses. Then they contacted Jessica, my lawyer, and yes, the divorce proceedings for those guys ended very badly for them. Not only did they take a gigantic percentage of their assets, but they were left with almost nothing." I looked at Mark, and Sarah's friends, the ones who were not unfaithful, had to cut all contact with the group. Their husbands forced them to, but the others did turn out to be unfaithful too. I reflected for a moment. Even Chloe, the one who told me everything at the beginning, turned out to be unfaithful to her husband. It was a web of lies. And Sarah, she lives in a small apartment now. She started a very expensive legal process to try to find out who Yen's father is, doing several DNA tests with different men. We sat in silence for a moment. "You know, Mark," I said, taking a sip of beer, "I am going to take some time. I am talking to Jessica about going out and all that, but I want to be alone. I need to rest from this whole marriage and commitment environment, to heal." Mark looked at me with that unconditional loyalty of his. "I support you in everything, my friend. For whatever you need, I will be here." And so it was the end of an era, the beginning of a new one. Life had hit me hard, but I had survived. And most importantly, I had learned.